Welcome back to Paranormal Living, where the guests and I speak about living with the paranormal. All right, we're excited to get that going on this show. So let's get started. Go ahead and welcome. Go ahead and introduce yourself and welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm Mike Sears. Thanks for having me back on the show. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I'm the director and founder of Volunteer State Paranormal Research out of Middle Tennessee. I started the group in 2009, and we've been going, since. Um, Before I started creating a team, I had moved in Tennessee in 2005, and the house that we moved in, typical normal house, it was not old. It was built in 1984. And the story how we found the house is really interesting. My wife and I found it online, and our parents had moved up here, and we asked them to go look for it, and they couldn't find it. They asked a realtor, they couldn't find it. So we started looking for another house, and we found another house, and we went to go look at that. We had already put a payment on it and everything because we thought everything was good to go. And luckily, went to the courthouse and found out that the property had a sinkhole in it prior, which was a shocker. The seller didn't divulge. So that sale fell through. And so we went to the realtor and said, hey, we need to find another house really quick. We're here with our U-Haul. We thought we are going to be moving into a new house. So they found us another house. We were ready to put an offer on it. And we stopped at the real estate agency, and I was looking at their bulletin board. And hidden in the bulletin board was the original house that we fell in love with online. And I said, well, hey, where's this house? We've been looking for this for months. And they're like, oh, I'm shocked it's never been sold. Um, you want to go look at it before you put an offer on this one? So we're like, yeah. So we went to the house and fell in love with it, loved the location and everything. And we ended up buying it. And the second day, wife and I were bringing in stuff and we were setting up the house there. And down in the basement is a full finished basement with carpet and all that. So that was going to be my office area. And so temporary, I had set up a folding table to put my computer on so I can get on that. And as I was setting up the table, I thought my wife was coming down the stairs to bring me something to drink. And here comes this lady down the stairs in a full white dress. And she had her hair up in a bun. And I looked at her and she comes down the stairs, stops, looks right at me, smiles, goes across the room and goes right through the wall. And I yelled out to my wife. I said, hey, I think we just, moved into a haunted house. And she's like, are you serious? I go, yeah. I said, I just saw this woman come down the stairs. She literally looked at me and walked across the room and went in the wall. And I said, great. That is not what I wanted to do, was to move into a haunted house due to my prior experiences living in an extreme haunting in Florida that I had shared on an earlier show. And so that started a whole bunch of new activity in my life and inspired me to seek more answers into the paranormal.
Wow. Well, I haven't had anything like that yet, but that would be very interesting.
Well, it ended up continuing to be very active as we moved in. When we moved in, my daughter was 3 years old, and my son at the time was just born. He was only a couple months old. And once we got settled in, um, my daughters used to watch like Blue's Clues and stuff like that. And so when she was playing in her room, we thought she was recreating the show because she kept on saying she was playing with Joe. And the character on Blue's Clues is Joe. And so we just thought she was just using an active imagination. And she would go, "Hey, I want to go outside." And I go, "Why?" Because Joe's outside. And I look outside and I'm not seeing anybody out there. And she goes, "Oh, he just went behind the tree." And then we asked her, I go, "What does Joe look like?" And she's like, he's about my age and he's got brownish, sandy, blondish kind of mixed hair and real curly. And we're like, okay. Well, then a month went by and woke up one night and I thought the cat had jumped on our bed, and we don't let the cats sleep in the bed because I got allergies. So I go to the wife. I said, "Hey, I think the cat's on the bed. Can you get the cat off the bed?" And she sits up and gasps, and I can literally feel, which I thought was the cat leaving the bed. You could feel the movement of the bed. And
Right.
she said she witnessed a little boy sitting at the end of the bed looking at her and ran out of the bedroom and vanished. Before he get to the bedroom door, she said he just dissipated and vanished. And I'm like, okay. And we're like, wow. And so like a couple of weeks go by and I'm by myself and the wife's out with the kids and I come up from my office and they're sitting at the kitchen table was the little boy. He looked right at me and smiled and poof, vanished. And so that inspired me to start looking more into hauntings, the showing that not all hauntings are negative. And so I started doing some more research and I started watching some of the shows on TV. And some of the shows, when I was watching them, I was like, these teams come in there and they're helping these families saying, yeah, you're not crazy. There is activity, but they weren't finding the answers or helping them. I didn't feel they were comforting them. They left them. And some of the shows I saw, it looked like they were leaving them more terrified after they left. So I go to the wife. I said, I've lived through an extreme haunting and now we got this. I said, maybe my experiences, I can help people understand that they're not crazy, that this stuff really does happen. And I said, maybe I should go find a team in Middle Tennessee and learn how to investigate. And maybe I can help them with my experiences. So that's what spurred me to do that. And I did that in 2006. I had joined a team here out of Nashville and worked with them for almost 3 years and had some amazing experiences working with them and had all kinds of encounters.
Oh, so did your son ever see anything?
Yes. As my son got older, he had seen the little boy. He came into his room and then he also saw older gentlemen. He saw a prisoner in a full orange jumpsuit, which was kind of scary, standing at his bedroom door. And I taught my kids if you start seeing ghosts, just say hello and say, look, you need to go. You can't talk to me. You need to leave. And if you don't leave, I'm going to go get my parents. And there was times they would come downstairs and tell us, hey, there's a ghost in my bedroom. They won't leave me alone. And there was a few times they were spooked, which is understandable. There was like an incident where my daughter was using the bathroom and she come running out of there super fast, and she said that an arm was reaching out of the wall towards her, which
Oh,
scared her, which is
yeah,
understandable. It
that
would scare me too if I.
right. Right. No doubt.
And we've had times where we've heard whistling, footsteps through the house, doors opening and closing on their own. Um, we've seen orbs, balls of light, not just on a camera, but with our own naked eye. And
Mhm.
which is pretty amazing. Where my cat one time was alerted, and I'm like, "What are you looking at?" And I look, and floating across the living room, it looked like someone had blown a bubble. It was translucent and about the size of a baseball, just floating across the room, and it just
Oh,
went right
wow.
in. Yeah, and it just went right into the wall and disappeared. And then I've also seen him come. The living room right above it is my daughter's bedroom, and I've seen where the ball would come through the ceiling and just hover and then go right back up. So we've seen some amazing stuff. And when I started my own team, my team actually would come here and have our team meetings and that, and we would do like mini investigations here, like an EVP session at the kitchen table, almost like a seance. And they witnessed stuff. I mean, they saw objects move. We had lights turned on command. We've had disembodied voices. We've had people touch. We've witnessed shadow figures, appearing. So it's a very active location. Some months, nothing happens. And we've had, almost a full year with no activity, but then all of a sudden they'll pick up again.
Wow. So can anybody, I'm just kind of curious, does anybody see these spirits or these ghosts in your house, or
I think
are
it
these people all clairvoyant?
I don't know. I mean, I've had people that say they were a medium or a psychic, and I bring them over here to test them. And we've actually had one that was sitting at the table, and one of my team members is kicking me under the table in the leg, and he's like turning his head like, "Hey, look." And she had her back to the hallway. So I'm like, "So how you doing down there?" And she's like, I'm fine." I said, "Feeling anything?" She's like, "No, not feeling anything." And behind her is a shadow figure, and my tri-field meter is pegging. And I was like, "Sure, you're not feeling anything?" She's like, "No, should I be feeling something?" And I'm like, "Oh, you're good." She was let go later on, but yeah, we've had some amazing stuff where the team has, witnessed stuff, and it's pretty amazing. I've even had a friend that's in the music industry that was kind of skeptic, and I had him come over and do an investigation at the house, and he left a believer. He saw a shadow figure standing in the hallway between my kids' room, and walked into my son's room, and he called it out. And we had a video camera going and three audio recorders. And my video camera captured the EVP. And the guest, his recorder got nothing. My recorder got nothing. And another team member's recorder got nothing. But the video camera caught it clear as day, a man with a strong Southern accent calling him a nasty name when he
Ooh.
called him out. Yeah. 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 So that was interesting. But that's the only cuss word I think I've ever heard. He didn't tell him like to get out or anything like that. He called him a chicken, and you can add the rest to it. But it was very amazing EVP. And when I sent that to him, he was like blown away. He's like, "Wow, I didn't hear that, and that was not me." And I said, "Well, it's interesting. Your recorder didn't get it, my voice recorder didn't get it, and the other team member's recorder didn't get it, but the camera did."
Yeah, quite interesting. Interesting. Wow. Wow, that's really cool.
Well, we've had a lot of different spirits where we've seen my wife has seen a guy that looks like almost like a cowboy. He's in a long trench coat and he had like a cowboy hat and hadn't shaved, looked like, scruffy. And she was in the bedroom and she has a wall mirror and she was studying. She was studying at the time for her RN degree. And she thought I had walked in the room because she felt like this chill and she thought that maybe, the door opening had let the AC, cold air into the room or something. And
Yeah.
and so she perked her head up and she looked at the mirror because something caught her eye. And she sees this guy walking the opposite side of the bed, reflecting in the mirror with the duster and the hat, walks right by and goes into the wall, which was pretty amazing.
Wow.
We've heard like uh, we've heard like cowboy boots. There was one time, it was in the fall, and we're all in the living room watching TV, and we could hear boots walk across my wood front porch. And I said, "Who's here at like 9 o'clock at night?" And we literally heard the storm door open, and we're like, "Wow, someone's at the door." And you hear a knock. So I get up and I turn on all the floodlights and porch lights on, and I open the door and I look left and I look right and there's nobody there. And I'm like, "Whoa, what's going on?" And then all of a sudden you could hear the boots to my left walking across the porch, step off the porch, and I follow it. And, towards the end of the porch, and you could hear the boots like they're uh crunching on leaves going towards the
Uh-huh.
neighbor's house. But nobody was there. I had it all lit up. It was crazy.
Whoa. And you followed it.
Yeah. I went to the neighbor's house. Yeah. So I always
And
wonder
you
if they
followed
got
all the way,
activity.
you followed it
Yeah, I
all the way
followed
to the
it. I
neighbors?
followed, well, I followed it till I couldn't hear it anymore. I went about halfway to the neighbor's house when it stopped disappearing. The sound went away. But you could hear it walking through the leaves halfway through my yard. Yeah.
Wow. So do you know what the history of your land is?
Um, so far what I've researched is the property was owned by a farmer way back in the 1800s to early 1900s. And I worked at a local museum, and I had a sheriff deputy that was on tour there, and he was telling me he had lived in the county his whole life. So I was like, oh wow. So I said, I got a question for you. I'm kind of new to Tennessee. Do you know anything about this neighborhood? And he's like, oh yeah, it used to be an old farmhouse up on the hill. Well, my house and the street I'm on is the highest point in the neighborhood. So I think
Uh-huh.
the farmhouse was in that area. Now, I've actually worked in my yard twice in several years where I was out burning leaves. And I thought it was a neighbor coming over to complain about the smoke of burning leaves. And this guy comes over and he's wearing a plaid shirt, got the denim coveralls, and look like I'm, like a farmer, typical farmer look. And
Yeah.
he comes over walking towards me, and I'm raking the leaves. And I look up and I said, hey, how's it going? And I go back to raking, wait for him to say, hey, what are you up to or something. And I look back up and he's totally gone. And I've had that twice out in the yard. And the cool thing is when I have like team members and witnesses,
Hmm.
one time I was having a cookout for the team. We had just done a public event and had some money donated to us, so I had used it towards a barbecue. And so I had them all over, and we're all sitting at the kitchen table, and we hear someone running um, on the porch. And one of the team members goes, "Where's your kids?" And I go, "Kids are at the grandparents," because we tried to, when they're little, we didn't want them involved in the paranormal, as when we investigated that. And so they're like, well, who's running on the porch? Sounds like a kid running, because the footsteps sound like a kid. And we literally saw someone run by the window of my front door. It's got a big like glass panel on it. And so one of the team members was about to get up, and then all of a sudden the kitchen door gets whacked, like someone hit it, which is on the opposite side of the house. I have like a full porch that goes around the house.
Okay.
And so the other team member goes, hey, he's at the other door. So they separate and go to each door and go on and check the porch. There is no kid. There's no way a kid jumped off your porch and ran off. We all got up and went outside to look. We couldn't find anyone. But when one of the members, they saw like the face looking in the glass window, he described it, which matched Joe. And we did an ITC session, which is when we were using the Radio Shack hack box we're using at the time. And we asked, if anybody's here, and we started getting responses. So we said, can you tell us your name? And clear as day, a full sentence of a kid's voice comes through and says, my name is Joseph Sunshine. And we were like, whoa, that was clear as day. So I went
Oh,
and looked up, and in the early 1900s, there was several families in the area that their last name was Sunshine. And there were several Joes, but I don't know which Joe it was. But we think it's possibly one of those, that may have passed
wow.
away. That's linked to the property. But we haven't, since the kids have gotten older, we haven't seen the kid, and we've done sessions asking, where's Joe, we have a woman that always comes through, and she has said that he's moved on. So that's a good thing, we
That's a
think.
good thing. I was going to say,
Yeah.
did your daughter play with Joe all these years, all those years that she was younger?
Yeah, when she was younger, yeah, she used to see him a lot. And then there was one time we had friends over and their kids were over, and her oldest daughter was reading to my daughter and the other kids, and they were all sitting on my daughter's bed, and something came up and toys started flying off the shelf towards them, like they were like to spook them. It wasn't like violent or anything, but it was just to get their attention,
Huh.
which was
And
interesting. And then
go ahead.
go ahead. Oh, and at the time, there was an older woman, which we think it might be the same spirit because the woman I saw looked like she was like in her 30s. And I've had other investigators say that they've investigated places where the spirit might show itself as a child, or might show itself as like in their 20s or 30s, or their older version when they passed away. So it's interesting, like when the kids were acting up, an older woman would show up and tell them, behave yourself. Or like one time we had company over, and my kids went downstairs to get a snack, and their child decided, he's like, I'm good, I'm going to stay up here in your room. And he come running downstairs super, super fast. We're like, are you okay? And he goes, no. He goes, I think I just saw a ghost. And I said, what did you see? And he says, an older woman. She literally walked in the bedroom and she asked where she mentioned my kids' names and goes, where are they? And then she, vanished. And there was another
Oh,
time my daughter saw the older woman. She was late for school and she got she was heading towards the bus and she come running back in the house and we're like, what's up? And she's like, I forgot my school bag. It's in my bedroom. So she runs up the stairs and when she run in her bedroom, she had one of those glider rocking chairs in her room.
uh-huh.
And when she entered the room, the older woman was sitting in the rocking chair. And that spooked her because she didn't expect her to be sitting there when she walked in the room. And she
Right.
ran back down the stairs super fast and ran out the door. And I go, where's your school stuff? She goes, I'm fine. I'm good. There's a ghost in my bedroom. I don't need it. So
I'll
we
grab
were
it
looking,
tomorrow.
yeah. So we're looking forward when she got home from school that day. We're like, so what happened this morning? And she was telling us that, that older woman was in her bedroom. She didn't expect to run in and see her there.
Oh, that's
But we,
that's kind of funny, but yeah, I
yeah,
guess he was scared too.
But we've had some amazing encounters, with her interacting. There was one time I bought a Halloween decoration and I put it at the end of the couch. My son had fallen asleep on the couch. So I thought it'd be funny to scare him when he wakes up to see that at the end of the couch. Well, the spirits in the house were not happy. The ceiling fan light started flickering. The pole chain started swinging super hard and fast, and they're hitting the globes. And my son woke up and we had showed him what we were going to do. And I said, I don't think the ghosts are happy. And they kept it up for a while. So my daughter goes, well, if it's the ghost, they need to stop the pull chains, because it's irritating. And the pull chain immediately just comes to a dead stop. And we're like, whoa. I mean, it didn't slow down or anything. It just like someone went up there and grabbed it. And so I ended up doing a spirit box session and using the Echo Vox. And it was amazing the responses we got through. And I play that when I do lectures, sharing ITC techniques and that. And it was an amazing recording where the spirit saying that they didn't like the decoration, that it said it looked like an evil, demon or whatever. And it was funny because it scared the crowd when I played it. I go, no, I don't think they're saying they're that. I think they're complaining that it looks like that. And so later in the session, I said, well, if you don't like that decoration, what should we use for decoration? And they clear as day go spiders. So we ended up getting rid of anything that was ghoulish or didn't look, like a proper spirit. And decorate with spiders usually for Halloween and haven't had any issue with it.
Oh wow. So they didn't like it either. That's
No,
interesting.
but
Very
with
interesting.
that, from my investigations, I've learned is we try to appease the spirits that like see people are not happy with what's going on in their house. They're not getting any sleep. They're having all this activity. And we had this one case. It took us a year to help this lady. We were there about every other month, coming back and following up and getting more questions. I brought in several mediums, and when I investigate, I don't let the mediums or psychics talk to the client at all because I've seen that from other teams where that promotes fear. Where there was one time I was working with a team and the medium goes to the client right to her face. She goes, oh, yeah, you got a lady here. She had postmortem stress. She killed her kids and she feels bad about it. So she's trying to look over your kids. And that lady was terrified. And I go, oh my God. And I told the team leader, I said, that was not a good idea. She should not be talking to the clients, period. And I said, your research and your evidence that you've collected, then if it matches to the psychic and medium, then you can say, oh, by the way, we found this in the history. We have EPP saying this, and our medium also picked up on this. That's the only way I share it when it comes to a medium.
Wow.
And so it doesn't promote the fear. So I went to help this team. They asked me to help with this lady in North Nashville, and her house was off the charts. And she comes up to me and she's like, you're different than the other people working here. And I said, well, didn't they tell you that I'm here to like as a liaison, like assisting them? And she's like, no. I said, I'm my own thing, but they asked me for help, so I'm helping. And she goes, oh, well, she goes, I might be calling you back. And the other team was telling her that, it's all in her head. There's nothing going on. And I'm like telling the team, I said, I got EVPs that, you know, it's totally different. It's saying that place is haunted. And during the investigation, I was literally grabbed in a bear hug and I was paralyzed. I couldn't move. And my meter, the EMF was like spiking during that time. And in her kitchen, she had all these pots and pans hanging from the ceiling. And they're swaying and clanging when this is happening. And I'm like, if that's not haunted, what is? So the lady so the lady called me and said, "Can you come in and, help me?" And I found out she had, for over several years, she had other teams coming there or psychic mediums coming in there, and they were telling her all kinds of crazy stuff that, her house had, a demonic and that she needed all this help with cleansing of the home, which she did in a way, but not like what you see in the horror movies. And that's what they were putting that fear into her. She even had a con artist psychic that was charging her what I call ghost go away spray. And there were these aerosol cans, and she paid $300 a can. Yeah.
Oh
And she bought a
no.
dozen of them. She had a 5,600 square foot home, and she ended up buying a case of 12 for, yeah. And it was ridiculous. And she goes, well, it didn't help at all. And I go, yeah, you were conned. I said, we just got to find out what is going on. And she ended up having multiple spirits there. And most of them were fine just coexisting. And I just told her, I said, you just got to just ignore it. But she had one that was upset because when she bought the house, huge house, she had like, servants and stuff like that upkeep it. And when she moved in, they found an old flag in the closet, and the flag was musty and mildew, being left in there for, I guess, long over years, and that being in there. So she told one of
Yeah.
her employees to take it outside and burn it. And so when I brought in mediums, they all picked up on this older gentleman that was upstairs that was mad at her for taking his memorial flag and burning it. He was a World War I veteran. And so when we had, I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, I've had this psychic come in and this psychic come in, and they're all saying the same thing and they don't know each other and they're not, sharing stuff. And we come in there, I take what they said and I would make it into questions during our ITC and EVP sessions. And it would match to, what the medium was saying. And so we would go, what would make you happy? And goes, I want my flag back. So went and got a flag and had her, take the flag. I folded it all up military wise and told her to apologize and place it back into the closet. And I ran into her like a year later, and she gives me a huge hug. She's like, "Oh my gosh, I haven't seen you in a while." But I followed up, for several months until I thought she was good. But then a year went by, and she goes, "My house is so peaceful." She goes, "Yeah, I still have activity, but it's nothing like it was before." And when they do, something, I just go, "Hey, thanks for letting me know you're here like you told me to do." And she goes, "It's nothing, bad." But she goes, "That room that I was terrified in, she hated going upstairs." That's how scared she was to go up there because she had seen him several times up there. And
Okay.
and he had shown we had seen him several times, and we got like masses on trap cameras, like big masses of light that would appear on a trap camera in the hallway and that, which was pretty cool. And but she said she made that room into her workout room, which was amazing.
Oh,
But she said for
nice.
years yeah, yeah, for years she was terrified to go use it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I thank you for helping these people out like that. That's pretty awesome. I love that.
That's what we try to find out. Why are they, especially when they're negative. And, if I go into a place and I get an EVP of get out, like her house, I had, when I got the bear hug and it released me and the pots and pans are swinging and my millimeter had gone super high, I go, okay, now that I know you're here, come talk into my mic. And I had an EVP of him saying F you, I mean, the full words. And I was like, oh, yeah, there's definitely someone here. And when I went back, said out loud, I like taking the data and I'll play it out loud to the spirits when I do repeat investigations there to let them know that I've heard them. And when you do that, the that increases activity and better communication, I feel.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. I haven't heard anyone doing that, going back and replaying to them.
Yeah, it lets them know that we can hear you. And we've had responses come through the spirit box like, "Oh, he can hear us," or "They can hear us," and then all of a sudden we're getting more and more EVPs, or the ITC sessions are almost like a direct phone call on, when we're doing it. It's like amazing some of the responses that come through.
Wow. Wow. What is the greatest piece of equipment you would say to have
For me,
investigating?
for me, it's the voice recorder. Having a digital recorder because you can hear the response. And I use an older model, and the reason I like it is an Olympus WS100. Takes only one battery, AAA battery, and you can record it for hours, which is nice. But the plus side, what I like about it is you can plug headphones into it while you're recording. And we use it so we can tag stuff. So, like, you might hear a dog in the distance, but without your headphones, you wouldn't have heard that dog. But it's going to be on your recording. So we can tag it and say dog in the distance or airplane in the distance. We tag it. And then there's times where we've heard actual replies, like a soft whisper, or sometimes real loud, which spooks you. You're like, whoa, didn't expect that. Clear as day, you hear a response. Where I asked a question one time and I got a no. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't expect that clear to come back. It was like they walked up and talked right into the microphone. Um, those are always amazing. But is when I'm investigating with my team and that, if I hear a possible reply, I always tag it going possible reply. If I can't make it out real clear, but sure enough, usually where I tagged it, someone picked it up on their recorder on my investigation, where you hear the soft voice of either a male or a woman, answering the question, which is pretty amazing. And then there's times where I've, you know, gone into a location and I had headphones on in my recorder as soon as I arrive at the client's house, and I'll stand outside the door for a few minutes, and I've heard on my headphones like they're here or get out, leave, stuff like that. And so that's always interesting, so you're what you're walking into. And then I always, every time when I do like a pre-screening of a client's home when I'm walking through, I record it. And that way I can go back to the recording, and it's amazing because you hear the client talking and go in this room, blah blah blah, happened, and all of a sudden you hear a voice goes, "That was me," and you're like, "Whoa!" So yeah, that wasn't us. Whose voice was that? So they're not crazy. There actually is something there. So when we do go back and actually do the investigation, and you're like, K2s aren't doing anything, the motion lights aren't doing anything. I mean, I heard clear as day someone go, "That was me." So then we'll pull that EVP out and go play it out loud, or we'll mention it and say, "Look, we were here last time. I'm sure you remember us. We heard you
Mm,
say, we heard you talking." And usually when we call them out with that, that's the only type of provoking I allow. I don't feel it's overstepping or being rude or being mean. It's just you're trying to get their attention to talk to you in a I guess a nicer and kinder way. Not like what you see like on TV where they're like, "Come here and push me," or "Let me know you're here," kind of deal, whack me in the head, or something and I hate those type of provoking. It's like, no.
okay,
But
cool.
but it's worked. We've had some good results with that. And then we've asked, and then on return investigations, we've asked, like, we'll be back. We'll let them know that we're going to be back. And there's like, is there anything we can bring you? Do you want food, coffee, liquor, stuff like that? And they actually respond, "Oh, I'll take a bourbon or I'll take a coffee," which is amazing. And we bring that back. and I've taken like a cup or a glass and pour some bourbon in it, saying, "Hey, last time we were here, we heard you say bourbon. So here's a shot of bourbon. Come on up here and take a snort," I'll say, and I'll put a K2 on top of the glass, and all of a sudden that K2 is spiking after you tell them to come up and take a sip or whatever. We don't see the bourbon disappear, but we've gotten EVP saying thank you, which is pretty amazing, using them as like a trigger object.
Wow. So, how do you feel with that? Do you think that they're able to really taste that? Did they try to like taste it? I don't know, through their finger or something. I
I,
don't know. But you
I,
know,
yeah, I'm not sure. We had a spirit that followed me from my workplace. I worked at a local museum in town, and it was very haunted. We had all kinds of activity happen at the museum, and I investigated there several times and did a public event and the spirits followed me from the museum to home at times. And one of the gentlemen was a big bourbon drinker that was originally from that location, and his birthday was coming up. So I I actually use photographs of the person who we feel we're making contact with. And I will put their photo, I'll print it out either by a 5x7 or an 8x10 to make it large enough for the spirit to hopefully see it. And we've had responses, can you tell me who this is in the photo? We either state the person's name or say, I don't know, or that's me, which is amazing when they say that's me.
yeah.
And so this one spirit, it was his birthday. So my wife and I decided we were going to do an EVP session, and we took my recorder and put it on a chair, on like a stool, and put another stool in front of it, and put the shot glass there. And then we took because the WS-100s, you can put headphones on it. Well, instead of headphones, I spliced two uh, computer speakers, and we held each speaker to our ear and put it on full blast so we could hear it. And we could hear the soft responses, which was amazing, live during the session. And so we go to him and say, "Hey, it's your birthday. We, my wife got you some bourbon." Now, when she went out to go get the bourbon, I said, "Hey, we need some bourbon for a trigger object." We were both going to school, and so money was tight. And she went to the liquor store and goes, "Hey, this is the bourbon I got. It was only $2 for this little bottle." I was like, "Okay, hopefully that works." Well, this gentleman liked Jim Beam or Jack Daniels, and this stuff was like bottom of the bottom. And she poured it in the shot glass, and we're saying, "Hey, there it is." Well, in the past, we've had the K2 lighting up, and the K2 was not lighting up. And we're like, "How come you don't want the bourbon? Are you here? Do you not want it?" And we heard clear as day. We burst out laughing. It was hilarious. All of a sudden you hear this man's voice goes, "No, it's cheap," and it was hilarious. Yeah. So after that, we apologized, and then in the future times we did the investigation, we would put the real stuff that he liked, that we learned that he liked in the past, which was pretty amazing.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. So, does your wife still have any experiences? You mentioned she was going to school for an RN. Has she had experiences at work?
At work, she's had like patients where they're dying. She worked with hospice for a little while, and they were seeing past relatives or prior spouse or someone that had died prior, and they said they were in the room with them, and they talked about that, which is pretty amazing. And I've heard a
Yeah.
lot of nurses have had the same experience with patients where they say that their patient is seeing prior loved ones, in the room.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
She used to take notes and record it. And she was
Mm.
using, yeah. And she was at our house, and she called me, and she was on her way to school, and she was studying for a test. So she had done all these notes on her recorder. And when she was talking about insulin, uh and on the test it was what happens if you don't have enough of insulin and all that, and you can have a stroke is one of the symptoms. And clear as day, an older woman on the recorder answered the question, goes, "A stroke." and it spooked her out big time. She's driving down the road listening to a recording, and all of a sudden this older woman's voice goes on, a stroke. And I'm like, she called me to tell me about it. So when she got home, we had to upload that, and I was like, wow. I said, that's amazing. And the lady that lived here in the house, she was diabetic, we learned, and she had died, from an insulin stroke. Yeah. So we think it's
Wow.
her, that the older woman that's in the house was the prior owner of this house. She was the original owner of the house.
Oh, wow. That's that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Oh, so did you guys really had some activities and the kids are they still kind of into this paranormal scene or are they like, nah, I had enough growing up?
Now they'll assist me, if I need help, on a case. But they both live at home still. They're going, in college classes right now. And they've had experiences still in the house. We've had, encounters in the house. There's times they've heard disembodied voices, or I've had where I've literally heard the kitchen door open and a woman goes, hello. And I'm like, whoa, someone's in the house. And I'll get up from the living room and go out there, and the door's locked, and nope, nobody's here. It's like, wow. But yeah, we've all had stuff that's happened on and off, over the years, and it'll probably, will happen again, in the future. But it's
Right,
amazing.
right.
I've had team members that have come onto the team, and I go, have you had an experience? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, you probably will once you join the team, and we investigate here. And so if you can handle my house, you can handle a client's house. And that's where I use like a study area, I take them to a timid place first before I take them to a actual client's home, because I don't need them freaking out in front of the client.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. Very true.
and
Very
then a
true.
lot of them,
Yeah.
a lot of them are left believers. They're like, wow, they couldn't believe what they saw. One of my favorites was I was training a new member, and we're up in my daughter's room, my wife and I and her and another team member, and we're all sitting in the bedroom, and we're doing an EVP session. And I had a tri-field meter at the top of the stairs. And so she goes, if anybody's downstairs wants to talk to us, please come up. Well, all of a sudden, the tri-field meters start pegging at the top of the stairs, and you hear someone running downstairs on the main floor, um, run to the stairs and starts running up the steps and stops at the top of the stairs. And we're looking out the bedroom. There's nobody there. But you could
Uh,
tell there's someone had to be there because the tri-field's pegging. And she's like, why is that pegging? And where's the person? I just literally heard them run up the stairs. And I said, why don't you go look? And she's like, I'm not going to go look. And I'm like, you're in training. You need to go look. And so I got up and I said, come with me so you know that I'm not making it up. And as we're getting up, you could hear the footsteps run down the stairs. And we went down and we couldn't find anybody in the house. And my kids were at the grandparents at the time. So there was no kids in the house, which was pretty amazing.
oh, that is quite the activity. But like you're saying, it was all in fun, all in joy.
Yeah.
Just a little kid having fun running around and enjoying his house. Oh,
Yeah.
that's really cool. Have you had any like um I just lost my wording. Anything moving on its own except for like the chandeliers or the pots and pans, but that was in someone else's house. So have you had any
My house,
you
we've
like
had the pull strings
guys? Yeah.
and we've had it where in the house at one time we had every ceiling fan in the house was doing it at the same time,
Oh, no.
which was really crazy. They wanted our attention really bad, so we said, all
Yeah.
right, we'll do a session. And but yeah, it was every room the chains were pulling. And then my daughter, she got one time, we went to a Christmas party, and she was given a wind chime, and she hung it in her bedroom. And at night, the wind chimes would start making the noise. And I would go, hey, you leaving your bedroom window open? She's like, no. She goes, they need to stop playing with it. And I went up there, her ceiling fan was on, and it wasn't affecting the chimes. And we even moved it away from further from the fan just in case. No,
Yeah.
they would still be chimed. So she finally had to take it down because she got tired of being woken up. And then they would get her attention by knocking on her bedroom wall. And I thought that was when she was little, this would happen. And I said, "Oh, this got to be her active imagination." And she called me upstairs and she's like, "Hey, they won't leave me alone. I told them I'd get you." And I said, "What's going on?" And she goes, "They're knocking on my bedroom wall." And I said, "Can you demonstrate?" So she knocks, and we're just
Oh
standing
no.
there. And then all of a sudden, the knocks came back. I was like, "Whoa!" And I go, "There should be no knocks coming from that wall.
Was it from
It's a
the
straight
outside
drop." Yeah, yeah. I go, "There's nobody. There's no one could be out there." Yeah, she's on the second floor, so it's like there's no way. And when we did investigations, we did knocks, and they would knock back, which was pretty amazing. And then I had one time I had a team here, and they saw a white wisp float across the room, which was pretty cool.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
That'd be
And then I
cool.
caught on. I was doing an investigation at a Civil War plantation, and I had a vision. It was really crazy. I had a dream, and the dream was very, very vivid. And in the dream, I was visiting the Civil War plantation, and I walk in the door, and I see the director and some of the docents there all talking in the dream. And there's this lady to my left, and she's in a Civil War attire dress. And I thought in the dream, I thought she was a reenactor. And she goes to me, she goes, "You can see me?" And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Oh my gosh, you need to come with me." She goes, "I've been trying to ask them for help." And she goes, "No one's listening." And she takes me out of the house, and she takes me to this part of the property, and I didn't know there was a well there. And she shows me this well, and this creature, which I thought looked like a golem from Lord of the Rings, coming out, very creepy looking, and crawling out of it. And the female goes, I brought him for help. Tell him." She goes, "They need to find me." And I go, "What?" And it was terrifying. So I wake up from the dream. I was good friends with the docent. I wrote to him and said, "Hey, I had this amazing dream that was very vivid." And I said, "Is there a well in this location of the property?" And he goes, "Yeah, it's exactly where you're saying where it is." I go, "Well, I've never seen it. I've never been to it." And I said, "I think there's a body in there." And they had an event, and I said that was coming up. And I said, "Hey," and it was a famous psychic that was doing a public event there. And I said, "Have them just walk them over there. Don't tell them anything. Just walk them over there and tell me what they say." And they went there and said there was two bodies in the well, which was like, whoa. And then I had another vivid dream, and it shows the woman alive, and she's on the property, and she's telling this man on the property that she was pregnant, and he got mad at her and threw a rock at her and hit her in the head and panicked and threw her down in that well. Now, I've been asked, sadly,
Oh.
the museum now is under whole new management, and they won't listen to me, but sadly
Mm.
that they tried to, since it's a historical location, they needed to get approval to dig there, and several of the people wanted to help me confirm it because I said I think there's a woman, and the psychic that said two, I think being two, she was pregnant, so there's two people down there.
Mm.
And so during that time, she was coming to my house, the spirit, trying to ask for help. I it, Constantly for nights, you would hear a woman's voice in my house yelling help and calling out my name, which was pretty crazy. And I was telling them this, and they were like, "There's no way." And I said, "I'm serious." And I started recording it, and they were like, "Wow." And it was happening too much, you know. And then my daughter saw the woman in our bedroom. She walked by our bedroom and saw the woman standing next to my bed in the dress, and her hair matched the description. And so I set up cameras one night, and I caught this big shadow mass on the wall that my cat's staring at, which was pretty wild. And but we had a lot of it lasted for over a month, the activity. So and during that time, the museum finally said, "All right, if it shuts up Mike, we'll have him come here and do an investigation. We're having a public investigation at this place. Um, have him
Mm.
join the public investigation." I said, "Well, I don't want to do a public investigation. I just want to find answers for this woman." And they're like, "Okay." So they said, "But you got to go with the tour with the paranormal team. So the lead guy, he goes, according to Mike, there's spirits here saying that we're not listening to him. So maybe you just need to talk a little louder. Well, I had my recorder with the headphones on, and I hear this super loud buzz, like a bee just flew into my microphone. And the team leader, he jumps and sticks his finger in his ear and says, "Oh my God." He goes, "I just had this loud buzz go in my ear like a bee just flew in my ear." And I said, "I heard that on my headphones." So the next day I went and took that recording and took that buzz and slowed it down. And when I slowed it down, it turned into a woman's voice screaming on the top of her lungs, going, "Can you hear me now?" and stating his name. Yeah.
Why?
So he became a believer of what I was sharing and called me back. So he says, this time it's not going to be a public event. It's just going to be me, one of my team members, and you and one of your team members. And we're going to just go in and focus on this woman to try to find answers. And he was very skeptical of the spirit box. And so we were started off with an EVP session first. And all of a sudden he goes, "This is crazy." He goes, "I've never had this." He goes, "I just had a flash of a vision in my head." And he goes, "It was a woman who's wearing this colored dress and her hair was this color." And he
Wow.
goes, "That's crazy." So we went up to the second floor and we started a spirit box session. And he goes, "What are you wearing in the spirit box?" We would only pick up one radio station swiping through it coming out of Nashville. And he's like, "Well, there's not enough radio stations." I go, "Doesn't matter." I said, "It's better just have pure white noise. You don't want any, the more white noise, the better." So I said, that rules out any, fake positives, kind of deal. So
Right.
we were getting full responses. He was like blown away. He's like, "No way." And he's like, "What color's your dress?" And it matches, clear as day. He goes, "What color's your hair?" And it says it matches what he had said earlier. And we're like, "Whoa." And he goes, "Where are you located?" And clear as day on the radio goes, "In the cistern." Now, a cistern is an underground container that holds water. Now, I didn't know it was a cistern. I just kept on saying it was a well. Well, and then when I told the docent where I'd seen it, he goes, "Well, that's technically not a well, it's a cistern." But so that was pretty wild. The guy goes, "Holy cow, I am officially a believer of you." And he goes, "Let's try to see what we can do to get help for that lady." But sadly, museum went under new management and they're very anti-paranormal. And I hope someday they dig up the cistern and find answers.
Yeah. Have
She
you
was
had
coming
any
to me
contact?
after
But
she
yeah.
she had she did like one time she came to me and I said, "Look, I've done everything I can do on this side." I literally like sat in my house and talked like there was a person sitting in the chair across me. I said, "Hopefully you can hear me," because I just heard like their disembodied voice and saw a shadow figure earlier. And so I talked like, "I don't know if you're still here, but I'm going to say this out loud and hopefully it gets to you," and say, "I have done everything possible to try to help you. You just got to stop coming here now and spooking my family and, waking us up in the middle of the night." I said, I let them know. I tried to help, I hope you finally find some peace, and the activity stopped. We haven't seen her since then.
Oh, wow. I'm
Yeah.
sure she appreciates your help and what you were able to do. At least
Yeah.
at least people know she's there now. I mean, whether the owner doesn't
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. I don't know if
people
the
know
new
now.
museum that because I've had people tell me they've gone there to take tours and they don't want to talk about the paranormal. And so that's sad because that place was very, very active. I did a charity event with Chris Fleming. He had saw some of my data on YouTube and contacted me and said, "This is the most amazing ITC session I've ever seen." He goes, "Is this real?" And I said, "Yeah, it's very real." And he's like, "That is amazing. Tell me more about this place." So he called me and told him all about it. And he goes, "Do they do charity events?" And I said, "Well, I did one with Patrick Burns a year ago." And he goes, "Oh, I know Patrick." And he goes, see if they'll let me come in there. And he says, I'd love to see what the place is like and see what I get. What can I connect with? So we did an event there, and at the end of the night, he was a big time believer. The place was very haunted, and he even said to me, "Right now, this place is in my top 10." And that guy's been all over the world.
Wow.
It was, yeah. The plantation is in Spring Hill, Tennessee, called Rippavilla, and we did multiple investigations there. And the nice thing is, when I was investigating, we had docents, the director, sit in on some of the sessions, and they were skeptical, but they left believers. Like I had the director one time, we're down on the main floor, my team was upstairs, and it was just her and I on the main floor looking up the stairs. And my tri-field meter started going crazy. And she goes, "What does that mean?" And I said, "Hopefully that's some activity happening." And she's like, "Okay." And um, all of a sudden, I feel this breeze go by me. My team member on the top of the stairs, he goes, "Holy crap." And I go, "Are you okay?" And he's like, your meter went off, my meter went off, and then there was a shadow figure right about 4 steps from me, just appeared and then went right back down the stairs. I said, "Yeah, I think I just felt it go by me." And she said she felt the breeze. And then all of a sudden she goes, "Wait a minute." Because we had all the lights off. It was like real dark. And she goes, "The thermostat disappeared." And you could see that glowing on the wall, the thermostat. And she goes, "The thermostat disappeared." And then all of a sudden she goes, "There's head and shoulders by the thermostat. I can make out head and shoulders like someone's standing there." And I go, "Yeah, that's probably a shadow figure. They're darker than the dark." And, in the light, there. And I said, "Just tell it to step up towards you." And she's like, "How am I going to ask it to step towards?" So I said, "Come towards me." And then all of a sudden the thermostat appeared and the tri-field pegged again and went, and you could feel it go by me. But she left a believer that night, which was pretty cool. And my
Yeah.
favorite one at that location, I was doing a public event with Patrick Burns. He used to do a TV show on True TV. I think it was called Haunted Evidence. And him and I were leading teams. And I had a team in the basement of a mother, her sister, and her 3 sons. And this area was very, very active. And we encountered Confederate soldiers down there. And all of a sudden, all my equipment's going crazy. And the mother goes, "What's going on?" And I said, "Something big," because I've never seen all these EMF meters all pegging at once like this. This is crazy. And then all of a sudden, the mother goes, "Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" And I go, "Well, if you're talking about the guy standing in the corner, yeah."
Yeah.
There was a gentleman, his face was like an orange tinge, to it. And he was staring right at us, and her sons and her sister are all like in shock. They're all gasping. And so I call it out. I said, "I see you. I see you standing there in the corner." And it steps back into the darkness. And where his face was, suddenly a red ball, about the size, I would say, a golf ball, appeared where his face was. And it was red and luminescent. And then it just popped, made this loud crack. It made a flash like a camera just gone off. It was blinding. And all of a sudden the lady goes, "What was that?" And I go, "I don't know. That was the first for me too. I have never seen anything like that." And,
Wow.
afterwards, when they left the basement, they're all, telling my wife and other people going, "Oh my God, our session down there with Mike was amazing. And we definitely got our money's worth." I was like, yeah, that was amazing. That was a first for me too.
So it just went into an orb and then just vanished then.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow. Wow. How
So
exciting.
it's great when you have, yeah, I love when you have, a skeptical, person where they're witnessing with you. Um, we've done an investigation at a public high school, and we've been investigating there, I think now 10 or 12 years. And they call us back. And when we were first called in, the school was built in the late 50s to early 60s. And the teacher that I had talked to, he says, "I'd love to have you come and investigate." So when we came in that night to investigate, the principal was there. And he's like, "I'd really like you to rule out this place is haunted." He goes, "I'm tired of the teachers and the students saying this place is haunted." He goes, "I've never seen anything, I don't believe in it, you know. And I said, well, you're welcome to join us on the investigation. And at the end of the night, he was more a believer than a skeptic at the end of the night. We had some pretty
Awesome.
amazing stuff. Yeah. And at that school, we've had teachers, literally walk out because they were like, oh, I've seen enough, where we've had shadow figures appear on command. We've had, I have a picture, which is amazing. One of my team members grabbed her phone as fast as she could to take it. Is we were in the theater of the school and we said, look, we know you're here. We've heard you multiple times. We've seen you trigger motion lights and all that. We're not afraid. If you can show yourself, that'd be great. And then it was about almost 6 foot tall, white wisp of a silhouette of a person appeared by the edge of the stage, and she was able to get a picture of it, which was amazing. And all the teachers are like, "What is that?" And I go, "I don't know. I'm guessing a manifestation showing up." And they were like blown away. And then we would take laser grids and put it across the stage. And
Oh
I said,
yeah.
just keep an eye on the stage and watch the lasers. I said, the shadow figures will block the laser. And all of a sudden, you'll see where the lasers are no longer a perfect square grid, that you'll start seeing like a shape appear in the lasers there. And sure enough, we put a microphone in the middle of the stage and say, hey, can you go up there and sing for us? Or can you do like a speech? And we've had the uh, tri-fields get triggered by the microphone and motion lights being triggered. And we've had one time one teacher goes, "Is that normal?" And I go, "What?" And she points up, and there was a big translucent like orb about the size of a softball just hovering in the air. And I go, "No, I don't know what that is unless someone's blowing bubbles around here." And then it just started floating and dissipated and went away, which was pretty wild.
Wow. Wow. Do you feel a lot of schools just have the hauntedness in them? Or is it just like
I
specific ones? Do you think, is it kind of
no,
general?
well, I've investigated a couple schools, and I think they have a lot of energy. A lot of it's probably residual, but at that particular school, I had a team member. We're all sitting in the auditorium, and everybody was in their own little seating location, and she was the last one in the back, and she gasped, and I asked her if she's okay, and she's like, "No." She goes, "I felt watched. I turned around, there was a boy, like a high school age kid, sitting right behind me." And she goes, "He looked right at me and smiled and vanished." And everybody else was facing forward watching the stage, so we didn't see it. And so later on, we walk out to the hallway, and they have this big trophy case, and the trophy case has got photographs and everything in it. And she's looking at the trophy case, and she goes, "Oh my God, that's the ghost. That's the kid right there." And several teachers are like, "You're kidding, right?" She goes, "No, that's him." And one of the teachers goes, he was killed in a car accident about 3 years ago." And we're all like, "Whoa." So we went back in there and asked, "Hey, she saw you. Did she see you?" And on the ITC, you hear yes. And we're like, "What's your name?" And you don't have to give full name, just give us the name. And he said the first name, and the first name matched to the person in the photograph.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, that was a pretty amazing session there at the school. We've encountered teachers, spirits, and student spirits, and the school was built. At one time, it was a Civil War encampment, and then next to the property was, I think, a farm. At one time, there's like a family plot up on the hill right next to it. But teachers have witnessed all kinds of stuff. My favorite story, two favorite stories from that school was a teacher went to the library, which was very active. We had all kinds of stuff happening in the library. Um, he went in there to Xerox some paperwork, and as he was copying papers, something caught his attention. He looked down the aisle of the bookshelves, and there was a girl in like early 1960s attire, wearing like a poodle skirt, and she had her hair in a bow, and she looked right at him and smiled and just vaporized, just disappeared. And that was pretty amazing. And then they had one where the police were doing a security check one night of the school, and they saw a classroom light on, and they said, "Oh, maybe a teacher left the light on." So they pulled up
Hmm.
with the patrol car, and saw a guy in the classroom writing on the chalkboard. So they tapped on the glass to get his attention, to let him in, to let the police into the school to make sure he was authorized to be there because it was like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. The the person writing on the chalkboard looked at the police officers at the window and walked out of the room. They're like, okay, he must be going to the door to let us in. So they went go down where the side door was. They're waiting and waiting. No one shows. So they call for backup to surround the school, thinking this guy's trespassing, shouldn't be there.
Right.
Custodial arrived. Custodial people arrived to let them in. They search the school. They can't find anybody. So the police officers ask the custodian guy, whose classroom is this? And he's like, oh, this is so and so's, but it used to be so and so's. And they go, oh, what happened to him? Oh, he died a couple of years ago of a heart attack. And he was always in early prepping stuff on the chalkboard. And so they
Oh,
describe,
cool.
yeah. So they describe the guy to the custodian. He goes, oh yeah, that's Coach so and so. And they're they were like, what? So they all had seen a ghost, the police officers. So those are my two favorite from that school.
Oh, that's so cool. That is so cool. So, have you had any investigations that you've turned over to someone else, like an exorcist or someone like that? Have you turned any over to them, or do you deal with those, or do you work with those?
Um, I've done a couple cases where they were like extreme, and that was usually because I was helping someone else. I haven't encountered with our team that I felt anything that was that extreme where I needed to, call in for help. I've asked, like I'll call people for advice and say, hey, I got this situation. What do you think I should do with that? But there was a case in Nashville, and it was an actual country celebrity's home. And this team contacted me and said, hey, we like you to come help. And it was on an Easter Sunday, which my family wasn't happy. We had a reunion
Mm.
that day with my wife's, aunt and uncle was visiting. I said, I hate to go, but I got to go exercise a house. And they're like on Easter Sunday. And I'm like, yeah. And they wanted me because I'm sensitive. I can feel something, So I came in totally cold, knew nothing about the case. All I knew was I had to sign a non-disclosure because it was a country celebrity's home. And came got there, and just before I got in the door, I had like the wind knocked out of me, and it felt like someone had stabbed me in the stomach. I felt this hot burn go through my stomach, and like someone had stabbed me. And I fell to my knees, and they're like, "Are you okay?" And it took the wind out of me, and they took me outside to regroup myself. And they're like, what did you feel? And I explained, I said, I feel like someone just stabbed me and ripped me open. And they go, well, that's interesting. From their research, they had some amazing research and data that they collected. Um, the celebrity himself, he didn't believe the house was haunted, but his wife was having all this stuff happening. And he just like, oh, it's your active imagination. If it happened to him, he's just like, not real. But
Right.
she told him, she goes, look, this is getting worse and worse. I don't feel it's doing any better. I think I should call a team. And he goes, well, you can do that when I'm on tour. So when he went on tour, she called this team in. They went and researched it and found from the research of the property, it was several years prior, and that there was a guy that was drunk and was had criminal record, all kinds, from being a drug dealer and a drug user and all that. And he had hit the telephone pole across the street from their property and went right through the window and slit his stomach open with the glass window and ended up dying. And so they had two other mediums there, and one of them could draw, and he
Mm.
drew the guy, which was amazing. And the team leader was connected to law enforcement and had friends in law enforcement. They were able to run the picture, and it matched to this guy, to that property that was killed in the car accident, which was amazing. Yeah. And
Wow.
so, yeah. And so, the spirit was not happy for the cleansing going on. So when I got there, after I regrouped, I put my headphones on and I walk in the house and I hear this little girl's voice goes, help, like it was from downstairs. And I said, do they have a kid? And they go, no. And I said, well, I just heard a little girl. And the medium goes, yeah, I feel there's a child spirit here also. And so she said that we're going to hopefully help her too, but we need to get rid of this guy because he's tormenting this this client, and we feel it's affecting the her husband too. He just doesn't realize it. And so they started doing the cleansing, and one of the team members worked for local television, and he was like the team's cameraman. So he's filming it all, and this medium's doing a cleansing, and they have like a singing bowl with a big quartz singing bowl,
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
and she's using that. They're using so much sage that my lungs are burning. You can't see past your hand, and she wants to make sure every nook and cranny in the house is filled, which is good. And so they're going through each room, and when we get into the kitchen, the dining area, they had this big chandelier over the dining room table, and that's swaying like crazy. And the cameraman, looks at it, goes, "Whoa, what's that all about?" And all of a sudden, I look behind him, and he looks at me. He goes, "Are you okay?" And I said, "He's standing literally behind you." And he's like, "What?" And it was like out of the movie The Invisible Man, where the invisible man's standing there, but then the smoke hits him, and you can see the whole outline of his face,
Oh
and you can
yes.
see his nose and his lips. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
holy crap, he's standing right there in the smoke. He turns around and he catches it as it's just disappearing into the brick wall. And he's like, holy cow. I go, yeah, that was crazy. So we're cleansing that. And the medium goes, oh, the little girl's here. I want to work on that right now. So we went all in the living room, and she's talking about to this little girl that she needs to cross over and go towards the light and everything. And it was weird. The whole room changed, and it felt really good and positive. And it was like all this feeling of love. It was amazing feeling. And all of a sudden she goes, I think she's crossed. And we had this one guy, if you saw him, he looked like a Harley Davidson mean bike rider dude that like belonged to a biker gang, but he was ex-military and he had big beard and everything, but he looked real tough and mean. This guy's crying, going, "Oh my God, that was so amazing, so emotional." And so we're all doing getting ourselves together for it. And all of a sudden, the medium goes, "Okay, now that we've helped the little girl, let's finish going after this guy to get him out of this house." So she yells out loud, goes, "Okay, we're coming for you. You're next." And all of a sudden, the client's bedroom door slams super hard, and you hear this huge crash in the master bedroom. And the client had this gigantic wardrobe dresser that was
Mm-hmm.
probably about 6 to 7 feet tall. I mean, this thing was massive, and that was
Wow.
tipped over it and hit the floor. And you heard a disembodied voice from the bedroom goes, "F you," and we're like, "Whoa." We're like, okay. So we're like, all right, let's go there. So we head to that room. We start cleansing it. She goes, I feel we've pushed him out of here. She goes, we have 2 rooms left in this hallway. And she goes, Mike, I want you to go stand in this room while I work in the hallway. So I walk into the room, and I go to her. I said, it's really, really heavy in this room. I think he's in here. And she's like, all right, we'll start in there and then work our way to the last room. So she goes in there and they're doing it. And she says, stand by the door entrance and let us know if you feel him leave or whatever. So I'm standing there. All of a sudden, I've lost 5 minutes of memory. Yeah. I was like, all of a sudden I come out of it and everybody's like, oh my God, did you just see that? And I'm like, no, what happened? They're like, you were just standing there like you were staring up in space. And I said, I lost memory. How long have I been out? And I looked at my watch and I said, I've been out for almost 5 minutes. I go, that's crazy. And they said, oh, you missed it. It was insane. In the corner, he appeared in the sage smoke. And they said you could hear his voice saying, leave me alone. And and then they said he just went into the wall out into the hallway. And I was like, I missed all that. I didn't see that. It was weird because I lost about 5 minutes of memory during that time.
What do
And
you think
so we
caused
went.
that?
I'm not sure. I don't know if he had like was so close to me that I was channeling him or took over me for a few minutes. I don't know. But that was weirdest experience I've had on an investigation. And so we went out in the hallway, and she was a like a hardcore Wiccan lady, and she broke into Christian prayer and calling for angels and all that. And after it was over with, I mean, you could feel a whole shift in the house. And she when it was done, she was like, "Wow, where did that come from? That's not me. Where did that come from?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I felt the whole shift of the house, the energy." I said, "This house." I said that I when I came in, I said I felt tense. My shoulders felt like there was weight on it. And now after you did all this, and I feel he's gone. And she's like, "I think he's gone too. I don't know where he went." And but I go, I I feel so much lighter. I said, "I don't feel tense and all that." And even the client, she said she felt the energy shift in the house. And so we had just finished, and the phone rings, and it was the celebrity calling his wife. And he said, "Hey, I just flew in from Australia. I'm at the Nashville airport. I'm coming home." And she goes, uh, "The team's here. We just got done cleansing the house." And he's like, "What?" And she goes, "Yeah, they've been here all day since 10 o'clock this morning. And this is like almost 7 at night." And it was intense because they had a big house. We had to do all the floors and that.
Right.
And sh- she goes, "If you want, I'll let him wait for you to come back." So he comes back. The team shared some EVPs that they had captured prior, and they were amazing Class A EVPs. Like there was one where the medium goes, he's standing right here in the hallway when they were doing their prior investigation. Goes, "Do you know you're dead?" And clear as day, you hear this man goes, "I can't believe I'm dead." And so that was amazing. EVP, and then when she told him all that happened that day, he's like, "Well, I'll no longer doubt you." And we found out that we didn't know is when he was back on tours, when he came home from the tours, he said at home he felt like he kept on waking up from hangovers and that. And he said after the cleansing of the house, he woke up feeling great. And he says it was weird because he goes, "I stopped drinking for over 10 years and hadn't been drunk in a long time." But he goes, "Every time I came home, I always felt like I was having hangovers and I felt dizzy and nauseous." And so I think he was picking up the emotions of the spirit that was there at that time, which was pretty amazing.
Wow. Do you think some of that was this man bringing it home from his tours? Because he's
Um,
going around a lot of different places.
True, but from the research, the spirit that was there that that they cleansed from the home, matched to the history of the property.
Okay.
And that guy that the guy that was in um I'm sorry, my Alexa just went off in the background. I don't know if you can hear that.
Oh no. Ooh, that drives me crazy.
Hang on, it's like echo stop. Okay, sorry about that. So yeah, the research from the team and what they found from the sketch from the gentleman that one of the mediums did matched to the victim that was killed on the property, which was amazing. And when they showed me the sketch afterwards, I was like, "Oh my God, that looks just like the guy I saw in the smoke, you know, a lot like him." Yeah. So to me, that was a real amazing case to be part of. It wasn't my team's case, but it was one that I personally assisted with, which was pretty amazing.
That's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing. Well, if you're ever in the northern Colorado area, let me know.
Oh yeah, I'd love to come out there sometime.
Yeah, let me know if you're coming out for investigation. I'd like to tag along.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, I'd love that. I love that. Awesome. Well, we've been on for an hour and a half or so now.
Wow, time flies.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So, you are planning on coming on again. So we have some more stuff yet to talk about with you.
Cool.
So, I'm excited to have you back. So I'm appreciative of you being here today. So thank you so much. And again, I want to say thank you for serving since you are from the Air Force. So I just want to thank
No,
you.
thank you.
I appreciate that. Yeah. So thanks again for being on the show. And any last notes, any tips on beginner investigators?
For beginners, go with an open mind. Don't assume everything is paranormal. Try to rule everything out and be safe, work in pairs. Always good to have someone there with you. It's good for safety reasons and as a witness to your experience.
All right. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. And
No,
if
thank you for
there,
having me on.
absolutely, absolutely. If anyone out there has a story you would like to share, email me paranormaldana726 at gmail.com and we will get in contact with you and we'll talk with everyone next time. Bye.